justice. I feel like I'm not doing a good job with describing what this book is about. Let's try that again. Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Neha and welcome to a good old-fashioned book review video. Been so lazy with doing wrap-ups recently, and all the videos that I filmed for my channel have been vlog styles, and I really miss just sitting and talking about the books that I've read and I've recently loved and why I would like to recommend them to you as well. So that's why I wanted to do this video. I'd done one Q1 wrap-up earlier in this year in 2023, but I didn't get a chance to film Q2, and now we're almost at the end of Q3 as well. So I just thought, instead of just delaying it for further, I will just talk about the books that I've loved recently in the last 4 months and why I think that you should check them out as well. And also, I have this book stamp with me. So it says from the library of Sneha Ratakunda, which is my full name, and I've had this for a while and I really haven't gotten a chance to really use it as much. So today I just want to talk to you about the books that I've loved, and I also want to stamp them with my book stamp and add them to my permanent collection, so that, you know, it's like a nice little keepsake for me in the future as well. So anyway, that's the update. This year's reading has been going great for me so far. I've read 47 books and my target was originally 60, and I'm way ahead of my target right now. So, and this year has also been a good mix of, I would say, fiction, non-fiction, not really a lot of non-fiction, excuse me, but Indian fiction, classics, etc. And I do have a few favorites in them as well in my stack here, which I would like to talk to you about. So that's it. Let's quickly get started with this video. The first book that I've read, which I absolutely loved, is Wandering Pins by Cecile Pin. I actually don't have the physical copy of this. I listened to this on audiobook, but this is a Vietnamese immigrant book, and it's about this family who divide themselves into two boats and they leave Vietnam and they want to go to the United States, but however they get kind of separated, and one boat with the parents and a couple of the younger siblings capsizes and they die, and the other boat with the eldest sibling, so one sister, the eldest sister and her two brothers, they end up in UK, and they end up in the UK, which is under Margaret Thatcher, where there is all this, like, you know, all this connotation about boat people, like how Margaret Thatcher kind of welcomes them in originally, but then the policies work against these people, and then there's a lot of discrimination in the UK as well, and all of that. So like I said, I listened to this on audiobook and I absolutely loved the experience, because they do have a full ensemble of cast reciting the lines, and you get different perspectives, mainly from the three siblings who are alive, so the sister and the two brothers, and how they're kind of struggling to get a life for themselves in this country where they actually don't know anybody. In the US they had cousins waiting for them, but they don't end up in the US, they stay in the UK only, and they're trying to find their feet on the ground, right? And in the process they're also grieving the loss of their family, and also we get these snippets of government policy and you know, recorded interviews and news articles of the time. So it really gives you the flavor and the atmosphere of that particular time when the story is actually set. You also get the perspective of the lost, a little brother who dies at sea, and he's kind of like a guardian angel for them, and he's, you know, observing them as they go through life. So I really found this really beautiful. I think this was nominated for the Women's Prize, if I'm not wrong, and that's how I started reading it, and I absolutely loved it. The writing is so simple, but because it is so it's very, and because the author chooses to intersperse it with the government policy and all of these facts of what is happening to the immigrant policies of the time, you really get to see it play out in real life with the story as well. So that really gives you a really nice perspective, and I really enjoyed that. That context, of course, is always helpful, and I really loved it. I would definitely recommend you to listen to this book or even read this. It was a beautiful story, and it moved me to tears many times, because yeah. The next book that I would like to recommend to you is a non-fiction book, and this is Just Kids by Patti Smith. This is a memoir, and I picked this up because it was recommended to me quite a lot on BookTube here, and I was really curious, and I love memoirs. That's my favorite type of non-fiction to read. So this is about this poet slash music artist called Patti Smith and her life, but also her relationship with this very famous artist called Robert Mapplethorpe. So they are lovers firstly, but then they become like really good friends, but they have this entire like really complicated relationship throughout Robert's life. Robert Mapplethorpe eventually succumbs to AIDS. So this memoir is about their life together in New York City as they discover art and music and photography, and also this and they also discover sides to themselves. Like Robert is kind of exploring his sexuality, so is Patti, and they're kind of trying to find a place in life, you know, but their relationship is the main focus of this entire story. Like everything else is incidental. Like Patti Smith's own eventual life partner, her children, all of that is not really shown, but the entire focus is on the relationship that she has with Robert and how it progresses over the years and how deeply it has impacted her over the years. And I absolutely loved it. I'm not a music person, I'm not an art person. My music taste is extremely basic. Like whatever is the top 50, top 100 of my country is what I mainly listen to, but I just felt like this gave me such an insight of what New York was in that particular point of time. I think this was the 70s if I'm not wrong. Books like these, I really wish like I was born in that period and I was actually living that life, because it seems so glamorous and full of adventure and full of like, you know, just like people discovering themselves, and there's something really wholesome about it. It does have a lot of trigger warnings. It has trigger warnings for abuse, for complications of AIDS and HIV, so the HIV epidemic in general. So there are quite a few trigger warnings, but I just really like the setting, and I really like the way it made me feel close to the scene, because it was a peek into what it was, into the lives of people whose entire passion, whose entire life aim is to make it in the field of art or photography or music or whatever it may be. So I really enjoyed it. I didn't think I would, but I really did by the end of it, and I gave it 5 stars on 5. So let's stamp it and keep it for posterity's sake. So here's my stamp. Okay. Yeah, there you go. Can you see? So yeah, that's Just Kids for you. Next book that I really enjoyed was something that I've already talked extensively in my 24-hour readathon vlog. I'll link that above if you want to check it out. But this is Intimacies by Katie Kitamura. This is about an unnamed narrator who's a translator in the International Court of Justice, and over there she comes across this guy who is like the president, like he's the president of a dictatorship. He's just called the president in the entire book, and she is put in charge of the case where he's being tried for war crimes, and she has to be the translator for him in the court. And it's her first, and she's moved to the city very recently after a bad breakup from New York or something like that, and she moves here, and she's kind of still recovering from there, and she's discovering this new city, and she's put into this like really difficult case, and she kind of starts to empathize with the president, like, because her job is not just to translate words, right? It's also to translate subtext, body language. She has to really be careful about the tone in which her translation is also in, because this is a court. Everything can be used against you as evidence, and that context in itself I found so interesting. The setting in itself was so unique. I've never read a book like this, and I really enjoyed it. I've never seen this book being talked about on BookTube, so that's why I want to kind of talk about it a little more, and I would love to recommend this to you if you're ever interested in if you're ever curious about how the International Court of Justice works and you want to kind of have a peek behind the scenes, but also if you love reading books about women and women discovering themselves, and you know, women in new cities and living in the you know, kind of reveling in the solitude and all of that, do check it out. I actually really enjoyed this book. Check out that video if you want more of my thoughts on this book, but overall highly recommend. Do check it out. Another book that I absolutely love is Trust by Hernan Diaz. This is the winner of the Pulitzer Prize of this year, and it's also, I think, shortlisted for the Booker or something, I'm not sure. I think for the Booker, but I love this book, and I know a lot of people have already talked about this book, but to give you a summary of it, it's about, so it's divided into 3 parts, okay? So the first part is this story about this New York financier who makes his money off the bloodbath of the 20s, I think, where the stock market crashed, and he actually bets against the market and makes a lot of money on it. And his wife becomes kind of guilt-ridden because her family and her husband are kind of responsible for a lot of people's financial ruin, and it really takes a toll on her. She has a mental breakdown and she has to be admitted to like an asylum and all of that. So it's this story. Then we get like snippets of a story which like with like bare bones, like somebody like just like making outlines of a story of similar things but slightly different, where the wife is like fallen sick, and you know, the man is actually not really saying that I manipulated the market, but he's just saying that I had to take advantage of the market and I made money off it and I'm not apologetic for it. And then you get the third story, which is where the first story is actually a serialized novel which is based on a actual New York financier in the book again, and he is really furious about how he's portrayed in the serial story. So he commissions like a writer to write his actual biography, and actually his wife's biography, who passes away, and the writer who's writing the story becomes really curious to know more about the wife, but she can only really get to know about the wife through the husband, who only tells her that, oh, my wife was a patron of arts, patron of music, she used to love all this, then she fell sick and all of that, and the author feels like she's missing something and it's always eaten her alive. And then years later she comes across the diary of the wife, and that's where the truth gets revealed. And I absolutely loved this book. It was so full of intrigue. I was at the edge of my seat trying to figure out what is going on. First of all, it takes you time to understand what is this, because you are in the first story and then the second story feels like just like vague, and then the third story is when like things start to finally come together about the purpose of the first two stories, and then the fourth part of the book is when like I was like, whoa, this is a great book, you know. So I loved it. I feel like when you have so many like threads, I mean, I don't know if you've followed the synopsis of the book that I've given you just now, but I feel like when you're writing such a story, it's so easy to lose the threads and like just falter and just like not make a good book out of it. But I feel like that the author did a great job, and primarily it's the story of greed, it's the story of capital, it's the story of how when money gets involved, when people who make money get involved, there are a lot of great things that happen, and it's basically that. But the way it's told is beautiful. I fell in love with this book. I cannot recommend this enough. Do check it out. It is a bit of a chunk, but I feel like if you invest in it, you will really enjoy it by the end of it. So yeah, Trust by Hernan Diaz, for sure, 5 stars. Time to stamp it. And there you go. I am enjoying using this, you know. I haven't used this in a while and I'm really happy. Then another book that I've also talked about in the same vlog is Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. So this is a sci-fi classic and it's book 1 of a series. And I'm very interested in reading the rest of this series because I really enjoyed my time with it. So it's about this dystopian world, as all sci-fi. It's not a sci-fi book, sorry. It's a dystopian book. Or maybe it's even sci-fi, I don't know. It's a dystopian book. Let's leave it at that for right now. And it's about this woman called, I forgot her name, Lauren, who has this gift of feeling the pain of others. But in the America in this book, it's chaos. You can only there's violence everywhere. There's no safety whatsoever. People are killing each other for food and drink and money and all of that. So it's a very unsafe place. And in this, she kind of finds this idea called Earthseed, which says that change is God and you have to you have to respect change as your God, and only then can you survive in this world. And she forms this entire religion kind of again over that concept, and she goes on this journey because she loses a family in an act of violence, etc., and she's kind of just traveling to find a safe place. And that's where she finds all of these people who travel along with her and eventually become her first followers, where she convinces them about this religion called Earthseed and all of that. I love these books where the setting is so detailed that you are really in that world, and it's such a escapism. It's a horrible world to escape to for sure, but it feels so real to you and it feels so inevitable to you. And I don't know, there's something so engrossing about books like that. So if you are a dystopian fiction person, like if you like The Handmaid's Tale, and if you like 1984 and all of these books, do check this one out. I really enjoyed it. Octavia E. Butler, I would say, is masterful at what she does, and I would love to read the rest of the series as well, and her other series. I think, like, what is it called? I think it's called Kindred, right? I really do want to check it out. So this one for sure deserves the book stamp. Let's do it. Oh, I've already done it, and it's smart. Can you see that? That's sad. Anyway, moving on. Ooh, now I'd love to recommend a short story collection to you. This is Open Secrets by Alice Munro. I recently finished this, and it's a collection of, how many stories are in this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stories. And usually I'm not the biggest fan of short stories, mainly because I don't feel like I get invested in the short stories enough, and I feel like they end too soon. But I think this book changed my opinion of that. And also, the only other short story writer that I love is Jhumpa Lahiri and her short stories, which again, masterful. So the stories in here range from the 1850s through 2 world wars to the present times, and they're mostly set in, I would say, Canada, in this like one province, but it has like, there are a few connections to other parts of the world, like it says Brisbane, the Balkans and the Somme, and it's about the secrets of unconventional women who refuse to be conventional. And I think that's the best one-liner brief for this book, because all the women characters in this book are so beautifully written. It doesn't feel like, you know, shortly written, like, you know, with short stories, how the characters are only there for a few pages. That is true, they're only there for a few pages, but in this book I felt like they left a mark on me way more than I was expecting to. I feel like, I've heard Alice Munro does short stories amazingly well. She's won a Nobel Prize as well, and I can see why, because they're so rich, they're so different from each other, but they're so well sketched out that you're really invested in them, and you kind of read this book like a novel. Like usually with short stories I read one story and then I'm like, okay, I can take a break from this, but with this one I really didn't want to take a break, and I absolutely loved the book. It's a superb collection. It has different themes. It has marriages, it has gambling, it has you know, like disappearances, it has like all these like scrupulous motives, and I simply loved it. Do check out, this is a superb collection of short stories. If you're looking for one, I would highly recommend it, and definitely worth the stamp. Here you go. I feel like this is like kind of shading out, we'll see. And then the last book that I would love to recommend to you, and is an Indian book. This is Anis Salim's The Bellboy. This is about this young boy called Latif, and he lives in this like small island, small little town in an island which is really poor. And he is, I would say, neurodivergent, and the entire book is told from his perspective. So we never really get to how much it really affects him, but since it's really told from his perspective, we only get his views, right? So anyway, he is a new bellboy in this lodge called the Paris Lodge, which is in a town outside of his what do you call, island. He has to take a ferry to the island, to the town every single day for this job, and this is a lodge where people come to die, and they are mostly successful, I would say. So Latif spends his day taking the ferry, getting to the town, getting to the hotel. He spies on the guests at the hotel, and then he makes up all these like stories for the maid who also works at the hotel. Her name is Stella. I loved this book mainly because since it's told from Latif's perspective, there is this really innocent quality that the entire book has, and that really goes a long way in helping you develop like this connection with Latif. Like you feel connected to him, you feel it when something happens to him in this book, and there's a lot which happens to him in this book, and I feel like that went such a long way in me really loving this book and actually really recommending it to you as well. It is a coming of age story, but it's also a story about how this world is extremely cruel to the weak, to the minorities, to the underprivileged people in this world. and that really like builds up throughout the story, right? It's never like in your face from the first page. It's slow burn as you read, and then the end when it happens, again I'm not going to give spoilers, when the end really shook me. I did not expect that. I did not see that coming, and it was really sad, and I had tears in my eyes. And I think it's because the writing is so beautiful that you establish this connection with the main protagonist, and that's why when the end happens, it's really sad. So I loved this book actually. I don't think I've ever seen anybody talk about this book again in the Indian Bookstagram page, but I would highly recommend if you're wanting to read a good Indian fiction book. And it really gives you the flavor of how life is in the small towns, and especially in a town which is really at the mercy of nature, right? And especially with when you're talking about climate change and how intense it is being held, it is being felt at the coastlines of our country. This really gives you a flavor of how precarious things are, and also about how much the rich and the privileged of the world can take advantage of these people who are either weak, or who are ill, or who are sick, or who are poor, or they come from the minorities, especially in this country at this moment. That's all I'm going to say, because, you know, so yeah, loved it. Time for the stamp for sure. I really loved this author's writing, that I bought his other book which I found in the Lock the Box book sale. I'll link that video up as well. I bought Vanity Bug, and I'm really looking forward to reading that one as well. So time to stamp this, and yeah, that's it. Those are all the books that I wanted to talk to you about and recommend to you, and just have like a fun little sit down video. I haven't done this for a while, and I hope you like this video. I hope you've gotten some books to read out of this video, and do let me know if you've read any of these, what you feel about them, any books that you've read that you recently loved. I would love to know. Please drop a comment on that. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Still around, please like, share, comment, and I will see you next time. Bye.